Hey everyone, what up? Matt Kaiser here. Now have you heard the tragedy of Final Fantasy Versus XIII? You know, that one spin-off that was revealed back in 2006 and was originally directed by Tetsuya Nomura, a famed guy who's known for making Kingdom Hearts. And this was meant for the PlayStation 3 that had a truly different and intriguing concept and vision that was meant to be part of a grand scheme. Among also the fact that the script itself was meant to be written by Katsuhige Nojima, who you may know as a writer for Final Fantasy VII, VIII, and X, as well as the soundtrack being composed by Yoko Shimomura, aka the goddess of all music. However, over time, it sadly got reworked into a mainline FF game in the form of Final Fantasy XV, released for the PlayStation 4 in 2016, as well as also Xbox One. And that game alone was a completely different beast to what Versus XIII originally was, given the fact that also some of the core staff, including Nomura himself, was switched away. And if you want a more further detail about Versus XIII's death, check out my homie Crimson Roster's video on it. Totally not shamelessly plugging another YouTuber who's way better than me. No siree.
Not this time. No, not this time.
But that being said, the essence of Versus XIII managed to live on, with one big reference and nod in Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind. But, what if I told you that there was another game that takes influence in not only Final Fantasy Versus XIII, but also Kingdom Hearts, and even the likes of, say, The World Ends With You. Not only that, but it even has some of the core stuff that initially worked on Versus XIII, and that game is called Reynatis, being led by director Takumi Isobe, who also directed Trinity Trigger, and developed by FuRyu and Natsumi Atari. Reynatis was released on 27 September 2024 for PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch, and PC here in the West, with this being a brand new action RPG with some really hefty ambitions, primarily being on a fantasy that's based on reality. Also special thanks to NIS America and FuRyu for allowing me to get a review code. With that said, let's run away from the public, find some graffiti, and take down the police and monsters as we head straight into Reynatis. So the story takes place in 2024 in Tokyo Shibuya, aka that one place that many video games take place in. I mean, I can't blame them really, because I've been to Shibuya over 8 years and it's a nice place honestly. Anywho, in this Shibuya however, this is where humans gain the power of magic and become known as wizards. However, the townsfolk nearby fear the use of magic, and thus force the wizards to hide from the general public, especially when they're on the run from a police organization known as the MEA that keeps wizards in check. The main character for this story, known as Marin Kizumi, who totally does not look like Yuzora or Noctis or anything, am I right? He is a wizard and aims to free wizards from the suppression, as well as also aim to be the strongest wizard out there. Then we also have Sari Nishijima, who's a newly appointed officer from the MEA, and her goal is to suppress wizards as well as stop criminals who've been taking on a drug known as Rubrum, while also maintaining justice. However, both of them have a fateful encounter, and eventually their ideologies and ideas clash together, and together they'll have to find a way to free Shibuya from this ever so present chaos. And that is the story, and I'm not gonna lie, I really did not care for it, partly due to both the structure and the pace of the story, and how it just felt all superficial at the end. Now, there are some cool concepts and ideas here, like say wizards being dangerous, the whole ordeal with Dominus, and the whole magic guild thing, but even then, they just feel underutilized or not explored further enough, and that's mainly due to, well, the pacing of this game, as chapters go way way too fast, with some of them lasting around like say 30 minutes to an hour. And there are even some chapters that just feel like glorified filler. It also doesn't help that in the first few quarters of the game, you get to switch between Marin and Sari interchangeably on one chapter. So one chapter you're playing as him, and the other chapter you play as her. And this gives you an distinct impression that maybe there'll be like a dual protagonist route. But no, once you're at the halfway point of the game, they both have their forces aligned, and Marin basically becomes the main protagonist throughout the whole game afterwards, which does leave Sari, a potential MC herself, completely wasted, honestly. The whole world building of how Shibuya is depicted and the whole concept of replicas is cool, but then again, I just realized on how much this could be better explored if the pacing and structure was for better, if you get what I mean. Now, character-wise, they're alright. Marin, who's this totally Yuzora Noctis looking fella, is an okay protagonist, but he's basically a typical edgy Shonen era 2000s edgy kind of character, where he's all cold, arrogant, and only cares about himself and his goals. And not gonna lie, I felt like he had no change whatsoever throughout the game. Maybe a little bit throughout near the end where he's a little bit more softer, and while he does have some savage moments that did make me laugh, he just doesn't get much development as a character. Maybe that changes in the whole DLC episodes, who's to say. Sari, on the other hand, is a lot more interesting and has some form of development. She's honorable, kind, and respectful, and has some really good motives that are believable even. And when she does align with Marin's crew, at first she's not fond of them, but later down the line she does consider them to be her friends. It really just sucks that the game just drops her immediately as the central point on par with Marin, as honestly, she's a way more interesting character and would have been a much better protagonist than Marin. As for Nika, she's cool and does have a cool, compelling background and motive, but that's really just it. Then you have Dogo and Ukai, and well, the former can just be boiled down by being hot-headed, and the latter just be, well, kind of sassy and smirky. But that's really just it. Alright, then we also have Moa, who honestly, for all what's worth, she's easily the best character in the whole game, as not only is she compelling, but she also serves as this game's comic relief and cute girl, but also has an interesting motive and story about her. Honestly, without her, this game's story would have been a little bit more miserable, but Moa herself brings a lot more levity and quirkiness that would otherwise be a very dark fantasy. And yes, you can tell that she's clearly inspired by Shoka Sakurane from Neo the World Ends With You in terms of a design. As for the side characters, yep, they don't fare much better either, with the exception of Michiro, who's basically the leader of the whole wizard resistance group, that being Ao. But that's pretty much it. The villains are also a disappointment, with mainly the guild, as they had so much potential, but they just fall so flat due to either having just one or no personalities and little to no screen time. Hell, I can barely even remember their names. Heck, some of them just make one appearance in a chapter, and on that same chapter, you not only fight for them, but also kill them. Which honestly, that makes it just barely fleshed out at all. The only one who's sort of memorable is Soku Makabe, who's the big bad of the game, but even then, he's just a footnote at the very end. All of these core concepts that they really had were just absolutely hampered and wasted by the game's general pace, as everything just felt so damn rushed and half-baked. Now look, I wasn't expecting this game to be like, say, Final Fantasy Versus XIII, as I do think that Venom Rex itself, especially when we're gonna go to Kingdom Hearts 4 and beyond, might flesh that out a lot more on what Nomura initially planned for that game. But to be honest, I really expected something at least decent or good, especially when you have a talented writer like Nojima himself.
Disappointed!
Honestly, this whole story just falls even lower than the likes of, say, Stranger of Paradise and Crisis Core Reunion. As well as those two games may not have great stories, they at least had something to remember and enjoy about. Though Reynatis does have something that is kind of funny though.
No way. He just ate my hair.
Then again, it could be worse. It could have been like, the Final Fantasy 2.5 10 novel thing and the audio drama, which was, well, certainly a thing. So yeah, while the story isn't great and the characters aren't particularly amazing, at least the voice acting, especially the ones in Japanese, really do give up a really good performance. But honestly, that's just kinda it. Moving on to the visuals, and oh boy, this game looks rough, buddy. Now, I'm aware that FuRyu itself doesn't exactly have the biggest budget in the world, as many of their games look either subpar at best or terrible at worst. And really, Reynatis is no exception, especially when you have characters and environments that look something out of, like, say, a PlayStation 2 game. Now, when it comes to the art direction, especially Shibuya and the character designs, they look really, really good. Even though one of them looks straight out of Kingdom Hearts and Versus 13, as well as one of them was based off Neo the World and with You, but regardless, these are all good character designs. It's just when it comes to, like, say, the presentation, especially when you have just very stiff character movements, as well as really bad directed cutscenes that really just look off. And unfortunately, it's not just the main characters that suffer from this, but the NPCs look flat as well. Especially this bold commander here. I mean, just look at him. Outside of that, the environment itself are just very boring to look at, really. Especially both the dungeons and these damn forests. The only saving grace out of all this is the CGI cutscenes. However, they're few and far between, but when they're there, they look really amazing. So probably would have cost a lot of money. Among the fact that we also had some real life product placement in the form of Burger King and Adidas. At least in terms of performance wise, especially on PS5 which I got on, it does run at 60 FPS very consistently. And from my experience, I didn't see any frame drops. Now sure, I was not expecting Reynatis to have the same fidelity as, say, like a Final Fantasy or even Kingdom Hearts game, though I really think that they should have had a better art style that translated well from the character designs. Hell, dare I say it, that Star Ocean the Divine Force, a game that didn't have the best graphics, looks way better than this, and even has better directed cutscenes. And that alone isn't saying much, really. Now we come to the combat of this game. Now Reynatis is a real-time action RPG. However, the combat of this game is very interesting, to say the very least. Now, starting off, you have two different modes, one of them being suppressed, and the other one being liberated. With suppressed, you can't attack, but you are able to dodge enemy attacks. However, in liberated form, you can attack, but only for a limited time till your MP runs out. Also, given that you're in liberated form, you can't dodge as a result, so it's a good incentive to switch between modes depending on the situation. Now with being suppressed, you are able to dodge both long range and short range attacks, with the latter of which allowing you to slow down time and perform this QTE here, and if you do it well, you can also perform a magic absorb, which is basically this game's counterattack and lets you steal enemies' magic to refill your own MP bar. And once it's full, you can perform a magic burst, which lets you switch to liberated mode and also slow down time, giving you ample time to combo enemies. It's similar to say on how the witch time system in Bayonetta works. Not only that, but given your attacks are tied to both MP, you are able to attack with your regular attack as well as your wizard attacks, which are basically your two abilities here. Not only that, but you're also able to switch between your party members mid-battle, and each of them come with their own preemptive attack, similar to how Tales of Arise handles it. However, they have their own cooldowns on when you can switch, so be cautious about that. Not only that, but you also have the Final Menaces, which are basically this game's limit break, and you do this by continuously chaining combos, and when it's full, you get to unleash a powerful devastating attack, and some of these are busted and can chip down enemies and bosses easily. And given the fact that you also have, not only that, but also at the end of each battle, you also have a ranking system, and you get rewards based on how well you do in battle, whether it's on how long you finish a battle, as well as the amount of characters you switch between mid-battle, doing Final Menaces, and how much damage you take. And you get bonuses like more EXP, for example. However, while the battles are cool, if you're set in Shibuya and you are more of a wizard, it also spells trouble, as after you end a fight or remain in liberation mode, people will witness you and be scared of you to the point that they will report you on social media, which is weird, I guess. And by the time you have trending, the MEA will be hot on your heels, and if you're number 1, the MEA will come with higher levels and stats compared to you, to the point that you're likely gonna get one shot by them. However, you have the ability to either run away, or avoid them completely by going to a nearby cooldown, or fast traveling to a nearby section that doesn't have anyone noticing you. Not only that, but you also have this mechanic not fully present at all in the Dominus Forest. And thank God, because man, suppressed mode also is where you walk really slowly, with liberated walk running a little bit more fast in a sense. Not only that, but you also get abilities in the form of wizards, which are these graffiti symbols scattered around Shibuya, and these can allow you to perform either abilities or skills. And if you find a copy of it, you are able to level it up all the way to level 7, which is cool. And doing later in the game, you are able to equip more ability slots from the Babushka Woods. Though some wizards can't be obtained until a certain amount of malice is reduced, and that is possible when you're doing the side quests, some of which are unfortunately mandatory. Oh boy. Not only that, but you also have things like on how you have also new dungeons throughout the whole Dominus Forest section, as well as other sections outside Shibuya where you do fight monsters instead of the MEA. And yeah, overall, the combat is actually decent, and at times it can be really fun, and has a unique way of dodging. That being said, however, it also has its fair share of issues. For one, this game is mostly, for the most part, fairly easy, with a few encounters like being the City Watch, the drug addicts, or the MEA, who are not the ones that pursue you, just being fodder enemies and sometimes die way too quickly for combo potential. The general enemy design is really bland, with lots of enemies being reskinned and reused a lot. And the only ones that did stand out as genuine threats would have to be the ones that would have either purple attacks where you have to dodge completely, as well as the ones that have barriers that can only be shattered by performing a perfect dodge on them. The bosses in this game are not also great either, as majority of them are complete repeats, like this Titan fight guy, who you fight multiple times throughout this game to the point that it just gets so boring. and none of these guys present a challenge, and even the ones that do present a challenge is in the way of being completely unfair and just utter bullshit with this insane purple hitbox, and if you get hit by them, you're likely gonna get comboed by them, and honestly, it's just so annoying. The bosses in chapter 24, 25, and the final boss can all go to hell for my opinion. But hey, at least the enemies telegraph their attacks, unlike say Final Fantasy XV. Furthermore, the general combat of this game feels a little bit floaty, especially the aerial combat, and it also feels limited of having just 2 ability skill wizards. And not gonna lie, the camera, especially during fights, including the tight spots that you get to fight in Shibuya, is terrible. Absolutely terrible. We also have the exploration, and also it's completely dull, as there's not really much to explore outside of some cool places and just for wizard. And the dungeons are also really bland, with the Dominus Forest example being just borderline repetitive and just gets old way too fast. Like you see more forests with different colors, and honestly, it's just so bland, linear, and completely uninteresting to the point that I really got bored of them real quick. Also, I find it weird on how some of the Final Fantasy's attacks don't have the cinematics applied during your combos. It just looks really off. Also, getting items are completely useless until the very end, and with so much money you get, why spend on them if you can't really die that much anyway? Oh, and Moa? While I do love her and all, her gameplay sucks. It sucks ass so much. And the combat is only really good if you have 3 in your active party, and there are certain sections where you have to fight as either 1 or 2, and not gonna lie, those parts are really the low points of the game. So yeah, while this combat is overall solid and even close to fun, there's a lot of stuff that really hinders it, and I mean a lot. Now we get on to the music, and not gonna lie, alongside the combat for the most part, as well as the art direction, this is easily the best part about Reynatis, being all composed by the goddess of all music herself, Yoko Shimomura, as she delivers on some truly amazing tracks all along, even some of them that just sound similar to Final Fantasy Versus XIII and Final Fantasy XV and Kingdom Hearts, which makes sense given that this game takes inspiration from all those games. But alas, while it's all good, I wouldn't say it's her best work to date, but still, it's good enough. That said, let's listen to some amazing tracks here. And then lastly, we reach to the content side of things. So with Reynatis, what this game offers is lots and lots and lots of side quests. And these boil down from killing enemies to collecting things. And sadly, some of them also are mandatory for the main story. And not gonna lie, the collecting side of things is dull. It's so dull. And in fact, despite the interesting dialogue, the side quests themselves are so boring that I just dropped them completely halfway through the game. Then you also have these epilogue side quest chapters that you get to do at least around the midway to end of the story as well. And these are basically just post-game chapters for the game itself. And by the time of this video, there's also more DLC chapters for the characters, which is one aspect they adopted from Final Fantasy XV, as you can see clearly. But hey, at least it's all free. And then you have what pretty much many people are intrigued about this game, and it's the fact that they have a crossover quest with Neo: The World Ends With You, which is, the one really amazing sequel to FuRyu that totally did not meet Square Enix's expectations, despite the fact that, it was really, really good, and then yet Square didn't market the game proper. But even so, this allows you to play as Marin and Moa as they cross over into FuRyu Shibuya, and you get to meet both Rindo and Shoka, as well as fight the noise in this. And also having, tracks from Neo played in the background, which is pretty cool, not gonna lie. Overall, in terms of length, this game will take you around like say 18 to 20 hours, which for the most part is relatively fine as it's a breathy JRPG, and you do feel like a sense of accomplishment of progressing through the whole game. Now, with that being said, how is this game overall? Well, if you've been noticing on what I said through each section of this review, you might get the impression that I didn't like Reynatis. However, that's further from the truth, as despite on what I just said, I still kinda enjoy this game. Now don't get me wrong, I don't think it's amazing or as bad as May has pointed out, but in a sense, I do think it's at least decent. In a way, I consider it to be like a junk food JRPG, in a similar manner of how Neptunia Game Maker Revolution is, as that game is not great, but still in a way it's charming, despite the flaws it many has. And that's where I feel with Reynatis. While the story and visuals are something that's completely left to be desired with, the combat itself is decent for what it is, and for the most part it's enjoyable, and still has some really good music. I understand that this game had too many big shoes to fill in, as there's lots of ambition and passion put into this, but given the size of the budget and the development team, those ambitions sadly just did not fill through very well, especially even with the star power that you do have here. But for what it is, I think it's decent-ish. I know many people have pointed out that this game is like a PlayStation 2 game, but for me, I also see it as both a PlayStation Portable game and a PlayStation Vita game. In a way, it's kinda like say a lost PlayStation Portable game that Final Fantasy would have, akin to something like Crisis Core and Type 0. Especially when you have things like say limited exploration, a quick rapid pace, and just low graphics, and a unique combat system. And I think that charm is where Reynatis excels in that camp. Generally, games like say Scarlet Nexus, Astral Chain, Kingdom Hearts, and Neo FuRyu will likely be the ones that you prefer over Reynatis, as each of those games have aspects that are excelled way better than what Reynatis is going for. But even still, Reynatis is a decent action RPG, and it's way better if your expectations are lowered a lot, and if you can get it on sale for like say $20 US, which I think is the best call out of this game. Overall, despite the many flaws it has, I'll give Reynatis a decent, but barely, 3 moas out of 5. Anyway everyone, thank you guys so much for watching, and thanks to NIS America and FuRyu for once again providing me with a review code. Again, let me know down in the comments if you tried this game, if you played this game, what you think about it. And in that sense, until then, Mad Kaiser out.